Hey everybody, and how's it going? Merry meet. Lady Leeanna back with you once more for another edition of Wicca for today, and it's good to be talking to you again. I wanted to wish you a happy Lugnasad, Lamas, Candlemas, whichever way you choose to call it, and many different people call it by many different names. And none of it is either right or wrong, it just is. It quite simply is. And I mean, as different as an accent. I mean, but this is actually the day of Lugnasad, or one of the 2 days it's actually celebrated. So I'm not actually going to put together a video based around that right now. I had not gotten around to that, and so I'm not going to try to cram that in today. In fact, I will probably do that next year if possible. But today I wanted to talk to you about the familiar. The witch's familiar. Or, in this day and age, the pagan's familiar. You know, and many different people practice from many different religions having a familiar today. But a lot of people, and on different pathways, choose to have a spirit as a familiar. You know, some of them also choose to have fairy folk as familiars. Your pixies, dwarfs, elves, whatever, you know, and dragons, okay? I've seen people choosing dragons as their familiars. And there is nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with having a animal as a familiar, a physical being, or having a metaphysical being. And some have spirit animals likewise. But the familiar, it could be a cat, it could be a dog, a bird, it can be a spirit, dragon I've mentioned. And your spirits, they could actually cross circle arenas as they please. As a matter of fact, animals generally can, but once in a blue moon, spirits can attach themselves to an animal and come in with them if the animal has a nasty temperament or a dark side that is not known about. And you have to watch out for that. Familiars are very important to those that actually have them. And so no one can say, don't bring them into circle. I mean, how can they help you within your magical practice if you aren't able to bring them in circle? Just make sure that they're cleansed really well. Make sure that they're anointed and that they're in a single room of your house where you have the circle drawn whenever you begin to practice. And try to keep them crossing the lines down to a minimum as much as possible. These are the best ways to prevent spirits, dark spirits mainly, from crossing into the lines of your perimeter, your circle, your holy place. Okay? And some people, like myself, will choose to consecrate and cleanse an entire room and use it when they're doing talisman work or charms, things, candle work or whatever, lighter works, you know, and in that way you can prevent animals from coming in or going out of the room. If you want your familiar with you in the room, you can just simply close the door. But nonetheless, you know, people use familiars not only to prevent themselves from being lonely, which is one of the reasons why they used them in the oldest days, is, you know, practice was kept down to one person, you know, for the most part, or a mother and her kids, you know, for fear that someone would rat on them or that it would become too broadly known. That was a taboo. You know, they had familiars a lot of times so that they would not feel lonely in that room. But they also learned how to work magic using the animals that they would work with. And no, they wouldn't harm them or kill them in any way, form, or fashion. You know, we've never been people that would go against nature and harm animals of any sort. That's not what we're about. But as in witchcraft, that is. There are religions and pagan religions that do actually animal sacrifices or use parts of animals once they're dead. You know, and I don't go one way or the other on other people's practices. I don't judge, trial, or condemn anyone because that is not my place. But I do not use animal parts or pieces on my altar or harm animals in any way, form, or fashion. People learned how to use these animals to transcend through their eyes and into other places, or using their eyes, letting the animal run about outside, and the person could meditate and astral into the body of the animal and travel with them while they were out on their running benches, you know. And I have practiced that, and it's really neat to astral travel into the body and share that body with the animal, particularly a cat, and travel through the night and go where this particular animal went. I found that relatively neat, you know. Also, you can do that with your spirit animals, as in dragons or whatever, and go to mystical places. There's nothing wrong with that. And no one's saying that you can't go to mystical places using the cat or the dog. My two familiars, okay, I've had two familiars within my life, and I hold them very dear. I always will. And believe it or not, one of them was a Pomeranian dog, okay, and her name was Ticker. She passed away a good long time ago, 94? No, 98. And then there was a parrot that I had named Reggie, and he was a talker when I got him. Okay, whenever I received him, he was a gift from my mom, and he talked already. He had several words he could say. Reggie wants a cracker, all of this and that. But whenever I started taking him in circle, he broadened his communication level to they're here, and I see them, and can you feel it? He would ask me that. And are we ready to start? Okay, I guess because I would say that part to him. Are we ready to start, Reggie? And he would say, are we ready to start, Reggie? Parrots, they mimic you. But they're here, and can you feel them? I didn't teach him that, and he had a few other words that he would say as well, or communicational sentences, I should say. But he was a neat little bird, and he died of respiratory illnesses one winter. But these were my two familiars, and since then I've had spirit guides and familiars, ones that would come talk to me, sit with me, walk with me, protect me all the time, and I prefer that now, especially since I've lost two very close friends of mine, Reggie and Ticker. And I called her Ticker because she would, in her sleep, she would make this ticking sound from the time she was real little, and so she earned that name herself. Anyway, so I really miss these two. These were my familiars. Reggie was about yay tall and about that long, and you could not keep him locked up in his cage. He would let himself out. I would wake up, find him sitting on my chest, and you know, sometimes he would even bite at me. Whenever he wanted something, he would come to you. You do not go trying to touch him or whatever, not even me, you know. But whenever he was ready to talk to me or spend time with me, he would come and sit on my chest And he was a pretty weighted parrot. He was pretty heavy and, you know, I guess pretty long and tall for a smaller parrot, you know. And he wasn't one of these little parakeets, but he was a green parrot, a macaw, I guess. I forget the name of them, but I never was into knowing the breeds of the different birds or whatever. Parrot was a gift to me, Reggie, and you know, so I called him Reggie, or I'd tell him, "Be quiet, parrot," or whatever, you know. So he had basically two names. And he would listen to me. But his favorite song is "Everything I Do It For You." And I forget the person who sang that song, but whenever I would play it, he would go wild singing along with it. And I don't mean in words. I mean in parrot talk. I mean, "Everything I do it for you." And he'd be rocking back or walking back and forth on a stick, you know, just singing that song up a storm, you know, especially whenever I'd open up the blinds and let the window, it was a sliding glass door. Whenever I'd let all that light in, it would just make him so happy. And I'd have to put that song on for him, and then he would go to singing up a storm. So I guess I probably drove my neighbor crazy with that, but I loved it. I loved Reggie. Anyway, one day he let himself out of his cage, I guess to come and sit on my chest, and he got sick after that because it was in the wintertime. And it was a kind of a drafty old place, and I had the cage covered, but since he let himself out, it didn't matter. Anyway, that was my two familiars. That was my two stories with them. I would let Ticker cross the lines or perimeter of my circles, but only because I would anoint him after I cleansed him before any ritual. I would prepare my space for a ritual. I would cleanse him with holy water, and then I would anoint him. And then I would close the door to the room that I was in. And then I would let him cross the lines and borders. I would let her cross the lines and borders as she wishes. But she would typically lay right there with me. She didn't move around a lot anyway, which was surprising for a puppy that was, a year old. She was full grown in height pretty much, you know, but, you know, she was still pretty much a puppy. But, you know, really and truthfully, it doesn't hurt to let them cross lines and borders as long as they are purified. If they have a nasty disposition, they don't like people. Reggie, he had kind of a nasty sense about him, so I didn't let him cross lines and borders. He stayed in his cage, but in the room that I practiced. And I would anoint around his cage for his protection, and he would talk to me. And believe it or not, I would get utterances from him. I would get communications from him on words that he didn't know and he wouldn't remember or say afterwards. You know, so it was really neat, and it was almost like having, you know, somebody, you know, in a trance and talking to you from other sides. Reggie was an odd one, but he was really, really good as a familiar. So talking birds are really good. Dogs are really good if they're calm. Also, you know, like I said, if they have nasty dispositions, don't be bringing them or letting them cross your circle's perimeter. Now, you can also take your familiar that's, say, a bird in a cage into your lines or perimeters of your circle, but you wouldn't let them out. You wouldn't let them cross lines or borders, especially if they have a nasty disposition. But the primary spirits that I've seen as familiars from people that chose spirit animals, creatures, or beings would be dragons, your fae folks, or let's see, angels. I mean, those are the primary spirit animals that I've seen. Oh, and cats, sometimes owls. But those are your primary spirit animals or beings that I have seen used as familiars. Okay? Anyway, hopefully this will be of a help to you. It really doesn't matter who or what or how you choose familiars. They come in many different sizes, shapes, colors, ways of appearance, breeds, and pathways. I mean, so whatever you choose is okay. But remember, always treat your familiar as a friend. Never as a pet or an animal, or, you know, they are elder spirits, generally. They are spirits that are old, that sit within these beings. Spirit or true physical form alike. They are beings that are very, very old and full of wisdom. And they deserve to be treated as you would. And so you might ought to do that, because the respect you're going to get from them is the respect that you give to them. If you don't extend it to them, then they will disrespect you. You know, generally, if you choose a spirit or physical being that has a nasty disposition, then there could be a lot of turbulence within your circles, within the room that you practice, unless they're there for a particular cause, like Reggie was. He was a talker, and that's why I had him as a familiar in spite of his own nasty disposition. I would still anoint around his cage and all of that, and not only to keep bad spirits away from him, but if they did join him, then they wouldn't come into my part of the room. You know, so there are many different reasons for anointing, consecrating, and purifying things. And you've got to always remember to do that. That's very, very important. Anyway, this has been Lady Leeanna, and I hope that you've enjoyed this particular show and that it's been of a help to you. You take care of yourself, and brightest blessings. Bye-bye.